What was going on in Germany in the 1930s and 1940s is so big that it's hard to believe. There are so many people that it's hard to understand what's going on, and you were there, even less likely to happen. Let's look at this awful piece of truth from the US Holocaust Museum. Between 1933 and 1945, when they finally got what they earned, the Nazis built more than 44,000 prison, concentration, detention, slave labor and death camps all over the lands that the Third Reich controlled. 44,000. Just let that sink in. Nazis hated a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. If you weren't the pure Aryan ideal of blonde hair and blue eyes, you were probably on at least one of their lists. That brings up a very important question. How in the world did the person who drove the Nazi war machine get away with it for so long? It wasn't because they didn't try, it turns out. Adolf Hitler killed himself on April 30th, 1945, but Sky History says that he had already escaped at least 42 attempts to kill him. 42. Why did so many people, even other Nazis, fail to kill Hitler? The assassination attempt started long before World War II. How the heck was this allowed to happen is one of the most important things people should ask when they see someone like Adolf Hitler. It's complex, but the National W.P. Museum says that Hitler first worked his way up in the Nazi Party and was then named Chancellor in 1933. What War History Online says is that there had already been 7 major attempts on his life at that point. They began a long time ago in 1921, when an unknown gunman opened fire on one of his talks. 2 of the same things happened to him twice in 1923, and 4 times in 1932 he was shot. One effort was made in 1930, but it was very well planned and involved poisoning. It was known that Hitler and his friends often ate at Berlin's Hotel Kaiserhof, where after just one meal, everyone got sick. It's not clear what happened, and no one was ever arrested in connection with the poisoning. But it's thought that Hitler's vegetarianism kept him from getting seriously sick. Food tasters worked for him for the rest of his rule, though employed isn't quite the right word. Margot Wulk was one of 15 girls who were forced to work as civilians and taste-tested the Führer's food in case someone tried to poison him again. The Soviets killed everyone else, leaving her as the only one alive. Some ended with the execution of a would-be assassin. As might have been expected, some of the failed efforts to kill the president went badly for the people who wanted to do it. Helmut Hirsch was a part of the Jungenschaft before it was broken up by the Nazi government. He then joined a group called the Black Front. The University of Brandeis says that they broke away from the Nazis when the Nazis became too, Nazi. They really believed that they could get the German people to stand up to Hitler and end the rule. To help them reach their goal, Hirsch was persuaded to bring a bomb into the Nuremberg building, even though he knew it was a suicide mission. He was caught first, though, and in 1937 he was put to death, even though the US ambassador tried to stop it. In 1938, a Swiss student named Maurice Bavaud tried to kill Adolf Hitler during a parade in Munich. This happened just a few days before Kristallnacht, the night of widespread violence and destruction that authorized the use of deadly force against certain groups. Switzerland, which stuck to its policy of neutrality, didn't do anything, so Bavaud was put to death by guillotine in 1941. Finally, there were guys like Captain Josef Beppo Roma. In his book, History of the German Resistance, historian Peter Hoffmann says that he was involved in planning efforts to kill Hitler from 1939 to 1942. Even though none of these plans came true, he was arrested and put to death as a conspirator. Some volunteered to die in order to try to assassinate Hitler. A number of men, including Ewald Heinrich von Kleist, offered to kill Adolf Hitler by committing suicide. He came from a wealthy Prussian family that was against the Nazis. When the famous Colonel Klaus von Stauffenberg asked him to commit the murder, he offered to put on a suicide vest and do it. He was meant to show the Führer how to wear new uniforms, But when that didn't work out, he took part in the famous July 20th attempt to kill the Führer. CBS says that when he died in 2013, he was the last person from the plan who was still alive. In the same way, Axel von dem Busche offered to bring bombs with him when he was supposed to model new coats for Hitler. Operation Overcoat never happened, and even though he had lost a leg and most of his right hand in battle, he stepped up again and took part in von Stauffenberg's July 20th plan. He lived, and the New York Times says he died of natural causes in 1993. Hitler's killer, Baron Rudolf Christoph von Gersdorf, was also a Nazi intelligence officer who offered to kill Hitler himself. He carried a bomb with him while showing Hitler through the Zeughaus Military Museum, and he later explained his acceptance of the suicide mission via Ozzy. I did not need much time to answer yes to the most momentous question that anybody had ever asked me. Some assassination attempts were foiled for bizarre reasons. Sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction. This was the case with some of the failed efforts to kill Hitler. A lot of people talk about Henning von Treschow. He not only used the Jewish virtual library to find other would-be killers like Rudolf Christoph von Gersdorf, but he also had his own plans. There was one where he asked a fellow officer who happened to be traveling with Adolf Hitler if he could bring a case of Cointreau back with him on the plane from the Eastern Front. Treschow forgot to bring the detonator because it was cold, so the bomb and trigger got frozen and didn't work. Hitler was supposed to be killed while giving a speech in Berlin in 1937, but the detonator didn't go off for a different reason. According to War History Online, the German soldier who was supposed to set it off got locked in the bathroom and missed his chance. The strangest thing is that the Allies stopped one attempt on the life of a leader. Axel von dem Busche was ready to go. He had a bomb and was ready to give up his own life to set it off, while he wore Hitler's new coats for the Nazis. The meeting never happened, though, because Allied bombs hit the train carrying the new uniforms the day before the suicide mission was supposed to happen. Some assassination attempts missed by the narrowest of margins. The statement, "clothes only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades," is not accurate. After hearing about the killings in the Jewish camp of Borisov, Rudolf Christoph von Gersdorf decided that everything had to stop. He put a bomb in his pocket and got ready to give Adolf Hitler a tour of a museum. Ozzy said that the bomb worked with a delayed switch. After Gersdorf turned it over, it would take 15 to 20 minutes for the acid to break down some of the parts and set off the bomb. In other words, he had to keep Hitler busy for that long. The tour was supposed to last 30 minutes, but Hitler sped through it in much less time. This gave Gersdorf just enough time to say goodbye and then run to the bathroom, where he flushed the real-time bomb down the toilet. Georg Elser also missed by just a few minutes. He planned to teach himself how to make a bomb and put it in the walls of a Munich beer hall that he knew Hitler would visit to celebrate his famous Beer Hall Putsch in 1923. He did this by himself, according to History Extra. It took 13 minutes for the bomb to go off, but it hurt more than 60 people and killed 8. Hitler had just finished his speech. Elsa would be caught, sent to Dachau and killed there. The July Plot. Operation Valkyrie was the code name for one of the most well-known attempts to kill the president. Surprisingly, though, the idea to sneak bombs into Adolf Hitler's private areas at the East Prussian Wolf's Lair, hide them under a table, and let the explosives do their thing wasn't even a first choice. The US Holocaust Museum says it was just a backup plan in case other ideas didn't work. Because of a few things, neither they nor Operation Valkyrie did. To begin, Klaus von Stauffenberg could only set off one of the 2 bombs. When it finally went off, the one that had been moved and was getting ready had a lot of its blast blocked by heavy table supports. After the blast, they were sure that it had worked. They went about the rest of their plan to arrest Hitler's closest friends and put in place a new government by cutting off power and transmission to the Wolf's Lair. The truth about what happened makes it clear why it's always important to look for a body. Hitler was still alive, and there was a lot of damage fast and far. Even though there were only a few main plotters, more than 7,000 people were arrested for what was often thought to be their part in the scheme. Almost 5,000 of them were put to death. Operation Foxley. At first look, World War II might not have been as black and white as it seems. In fact, the BBC says that the Germans were the ones who tried to kill Adolf Hitler the most directly. Operation Foxley was the name of the plan that the British Special Operations Executive came up with to kill him with a single bullet. It wasn't always going to be that way, though. War History Online says that the Allies first thought about how to do things like bombing his personal train. That was too hard to figure out, and the answer came when one of Hitler's bodyguards was caught and questioned during the D-Day attacks. They found out that Hitler liked to walk 10 minutes from the main house to the tea house every morning when he was at his home in Berchtesgaden for breakfast. The British learned about the area, picked out their snipers, and even talked to some high-level officers. Almost everything was in place. But when the plan was turned in for approval, officials from the Allies stopped it. Why? Not only did they not want to make Hitler into a mythical hero, but they also knew that he was such a bad military strategist that it would be even harder to end the war if someone else took over. Would-be assassins weren't all taking the moral high ground. People who wanted to kill Adolf Hitler probably did so to stop things like the concentration camps. But it's not that simple. That may have been part of it for some, like Rudolf Christoph von Gersdorff. In his autobiography, he wrote through Ozzy that he had always thought Hitler was mentally abnormal, and that hearing about the killing of 15,000 Jewish men, women and children at the Borisov ghetto in Belarus made him fully on board with trying to kill Hitler. The ground was said to be breathing for hours, until it wasn't. So many people, mostly children, were buried alive. The United States Holocaust Memorial Museum says that even the men who planned the attack on July 20th don't know what drove them. Even though some people did not agree with Hitler's anti-Semitic views, others were more worried about how he would destroy Germany. Look at Colonel Klaus von Stauffenberg from Operation Valkyrie as an example. His son Berthold explained his motivations to the BBC, saying that while he had supported Nazi policies, he was also disenchanted with Hitler's strategic capabilities, and that really Hitler was a different type of person from what we thought acceptable. Simply put, the Holocaust Museum puts it this way. Many wanted to rescue Germany from catastrophic defeat brought about by Hitler's increasingly irrational management of the war. Why are some of these attempts so elaborate? Now here's a question. He talked a lot, so why not just grab a sniper gun and finish? The drinks business looked at Major General Henning von Trescow's plan to blow up Adolf Hitler's plane with a bomb hidden in a Cointreau case, and said that he thought killing Hitler was just the start. Why was it called Operation Spark? Because they thought that his death would wake Germany up and make them get rid of the Nazis. The general who said they couldn't just kill Hitler was Heinrich Himmler. He said that someone else would take up where Hitler left off. That is what British scholar Roger Moorhouse says happened, because there was a good reason to believe it would have. He told History Extra that it was based on the idea that Germany had been brought down from being a world power by a shadowy cabal of Jews and socialists after World War I. That idea is what got a lot of Germans involved with the Nazis in the first place, and Hitler's death would have not only helped spread that idea, but it would have also made it possible for someone else to take over as Führer and keep going. Heroes with families treated as traitors. When you look back, the thought of someone wanting to die to cut off the head of the Third Reich for good is a hero. That wasn't always the case, though, as the son of a key figure in Operation Valkyrie told Newsweek. When the bombing of Hitler's offices failed to kill him, most of the people who were planning to kill him were caught and put to death. Gunther Smend was one of them. He was hanged from a meat hook in Plötzensee jail and left to die there. Besides his 4-month-old son, Axel, he left behind his 26-year-old wife and their 3 children. They had a hard time of it. Renate Smend learned that her husband was dead when she received a package in the mail. The delivery contained his notebook, his wedding ring, and a bill. She was being charged for his execution. Now labelled a traitor widow, she and her family were shunned by neighbours and former friends, while Axel remembered that even his teachers looked down on him. At a parent-teacher conference called because of his poor math scores, he was told, "It's no surprise that he's bad at maths. He's the son of a traitor." The morality of assassination attempts. Today we can look back at Hitler's rise to power and see how everything will end. It's not a surprise that people tried to kill him as early as the 1920s, but it's interesting that thinkers have said that men like Georg Elser, who tried to kill Hitler in 1939 before he invaded France, weren't really being moral after all. A philosophy professor at La Trobe University, named Jana Thompson, tells the conversation that the question gets pretty tricky. Some people, like Lothar Fritze, a psychologist at the Hannah Arendt Institute for Research on Totalitarianism, say that praising Elsa's attempt to kill Hitler might make people more likely to attack in the present day. Thompson explains, moral judgment should not be based on knowledge that comes from hindsight. That brings up another moral question. Would you kill baby Hitler if you could go back in time? Yes, of course, is the quick and simple answer. Vox says it's not that easy, though. There is also a lot of uncertainty about how time travel would work. It's tempting to believe that killing Hitler would have stopped the Holocaust, but the new past might be even worse. What if the new Hitler, who took over after the old one died, was a smart general who got nuclear weapons first, destroyed half the world, and ruled the rest with an iron fist? It makes you think. We hope you liked this video. Watch another video here.